I'm honored today to present John F. Kennedy Jr., the son of our late President JFK, who was assassinated in public in broad daylight. As many of you know from our videos, John was switched with an imposter who took his life, meaning he lived a life of glamour, of fame, of wealth, and privilege, where John lived a life of kidnapping, torture, abuse, drugs, organized crime, and poverty. Welcome, John F. Kennedy Jr., the real one. Thank you, John. All right.
How's this operate?
It's on.
Hit Teddy.
So as many of you know, we talk weekly, and we just, try to get the story out there. But I thought we would start with recapping the story, John, that you would tell everyone what happened to you after your father died and kind of lead us forward through the story, so those that are not in the audience might know.
Sure. Yeah, my father was assassinated, and it's really, really simple. They try to figure it out this way or that. It was a mafia war within government to take over our government. The United States government is organized crime. I've got many stories of what they do and how bad they are. I was kidnapped and replaced. It's all about money. If you ever have to ask why the government did this or why this was done or why were you replaced, just remember money. The Kennedy family had billions of dollars. The Onassis family had billions of dollars, and our Secret Service was right there stealing it. They were killing people. They were replacing people. You all see the commercials on your TV set. Identity theft happens every 3 seconds or something like that. Well, what they don't tell you is it goes all the way up to our government murdering people, replacing people, and stealing their asset. We were just talking about Donald Trump in 1989 and his helicopter crash. That one helicopter crash, they made billions of dollars. When they killed my mother and my sister, replaced me, they made billions of dollars. When they had to fake Jackie Kennedy marry Aristotle Onassis, and that was all a set-up marriage, they made billions of dollars. I seen it. I seen so many murders and identity theft happen. But anyway, in short, I was kidnapped and I was replaced. So if you go on the internet and you see these hundreds and hundreds of pictures of little John Kennedy, if you see the picture of me saluting, that was called a photo op. Me saluting when my father went by in his casket, that was a photo op. Our Secret Service had me practice that. I wanted to put a toy plane. The Secret Service had me practicing this for hours in my bedroom. We'll give you the signal, and then you salute. But they said, pick out a toy. I picked out my toy plane. I wanted to leave my favorite toy on my father's grave. We got there. Secret Service said, you're not putting that on your father's grave. They gave me a PT-109 boat, little boat. And they said, you're putting this on your father's grave. Why? Because that was a photo op. They were supporting the Navy and what it meant. They made a movie, the PT-109 movie about my father and every other thing. But they didn't want me to put my vote on there. But that's how they work. They're in control. They do everything. They control the presidents of the United States aren't elected. They're selected. They really, really are. I've been told Barack Obama's going to be president. What do you think about that? A couple of years later, Barack Obama's president because they control it all. But like I said earlier, all the photos of me all the way up to the age of 10, you can compare them all. My big flat, flappy earlobe, the hair color, it's all me. At the age of 12, the Secret Service had us growing our hair over our ears because they were in the process of putting Aristotle Onassis' son as me. So when you look at all the photos of George Onassis after the age of 12. That was my stepbrother. It wasn't me. And what, like I said, all over money. Right. And I'm sorry, I'm just rambling.
No. So when John was 3, his father was assassinated, as we all know. He was greatly loved. Okay. And John was under the control of the Secret Service and his, various handlers. And John did travel a few years with his mother around the world, but he ended up in what we'd call an organized crime household with the Quigleys. They were his handlers, and they were very bad people. You can read about it, but John can tell you some of the stories. Right from the get-go, other children were there being tortured and worse, as well as John himself. He was kidnapped multiple times, drugged, beaten, put in dog cages, and worse than what we've talked about.
It all goes to the Epstein files. My life was the Epstein files as a child. I was sexually abused. I was tortured. They used me to do crimes. If they wanted somebody murdered, they would bring me along as a child, because if anybody found out about the murder, it would go right back to the Secret Service, and then they would cover it up. Well, little John Kennedy was
Close.
We can't bring it out into the public.
Closer.
But yeah, it's huge, crazy, huge organized crime in our government. MK Ultra is a mind control over these children. And what they did to me, they put me with handlers called the Quigley family. Our Secret Service would come in the middle of the night. I would fly off to South America. We'd end up with some missionaries that were preaching the word, that were actually CIA operatives in another country. But they flew me all around. I learned a lot. They showed me a lot. And I still don't know why. I thought they were building me up to be president of the United States someday. Teaching me. They sent me to Vietnam just as a child. People say, how could you be in Vietnam? But they were teaching me how to kill. Our CIA said, you need to go and bring us back some evidence that you're actually killing people in Cambodia. We want it. So I was placed with a group, and they were killing people, and they were having me cut the ears off the enemy, putting them on a necklace. That was to bring back to the CIA and say, look at little John Kennedy's ear. We did some killing for you guys. That was really rough. But I'm exposing what really happens in war in Vietnam, from me cutting off somebody's head, putting it on a stake, from me seeing the guys put American flags in the holes. It's even in my book where they had me cutting ears off the enemy as a child. I think I was 9 or 10, and putting them on this leather strap, to show the CIA, yeah, we really did it. But that's the thing. That's the kind of things they had me doing back then. And they don't want that kind of thing out to this day. They really don't. That's part of the teaching they were training me to do. Learn to kill, get over it. Like I said, why were they doing it? I really don't know. Whether it was for me to be somebody and learn it all.
So MK Ultra is a real thing. Like, if you look it up right now, they'll tell you that it was discontinued. MK Ultra is when they torture someone to the extremes. It fractures their mind, and then they can basically plant instructions in that person's brain, if you will. And it's quite ugly. It's torture. It's still done today. And they can control someone, and they won't even remember what they've done.
Yeah, there was a few instances where if you really try to pay attention, you'll remember. But MK Ultra is our CIA, is our government's weapon to get us humans to do things that we would never do before. I witnessed a woman being killed in a basement. I went back to the truck. I went to sleep. I woke up. I did not remember this woman being killed whatsoever. but I was a truck driver. And my hands had cement on them. And if any of you know cement, it'll dry and crack your hands out. You'll have a residue. Cement's really hard on your hands. So here I am in a truck. I wake up in the truck at a truck stop the next morning, but my hands are all cracked up, covered in cement. My clothes smelled like smoke, and I'm like, I had to actually stop and try to remember what they didn't want me to remember. That's how MK Ultra is, and I could go story after story. They put me under MK Ultra one time. I went to school with some kids, and one of their fathers was a judge in the town. Well, they brought me there under MK Ultra. There was a group of men. Hollywood is very into MK Ultra and organized crime and everything. But they literally got a horse. These men were around. I don't know how many were there, 6 or 7 men, grown adults. Some of them movie stars, I believe. But they actually trampled this little child with a horse because that little child's father was a judge. And obviously they wanted to fix whatever they needed fixed. But I was there. I had an extreme migraine. But I witnessed this in the car. I couldn't move. I was probably drugged. But they used me and took me to things like that all the time. I got many stories that I haven't shared with a lot of people of things like that. With driving truck, I went around. I was trying to be, but I went everywhere. The big one, when I was driving truck, I was in New Jersey. They came and got me while I was under MK Ultra, put me under MK Ultra at the truck stop. I went with my stepbrother, George Onassis. I got on the plane with him in 1999, and they tried to kill us all in that plane. I was on that plane. He was on it, his wife was on it, his sister was on it, and I was on it. And they tried to kill us. I survived. My SEALs trainings, you know, all the training that I had my life jacket on before we even crashed. The sister had her life jacket on. But they wanted to end the story of John, the whole world knew, and me, the real John Kennedy Jr. in 1999. And I was lucky enough to survive. But that's MK Ultra. They can do something like that to your mind, and you never remember unless you really want to remember. I used to stay up night after night trying to remember, and I was real young, and I was counting all the murders that I knew about, just the ones I witnessed that our CIA Secret Service would take me around to. And I think I got up to about 80. And then I started counting the murders over and over again. And I was like, okay, I got to remember the new ones. But I think it was about 80 murders that I witnessed being under MK Ultra that our CIA took me around to witness. And with that said, that's the Epstein files. All these children that are put on the island, sexual torture, abuse, and all the things that they really, really go through, that's the real MK Ultra. And we need to expose these Epstein files because the elite, they're the ones behind it all. And it's a big news, and it needs to be told. And I'm here trying to get my story out to the whole world because the story I'm sharing right now, I mean, think about it, 80 murders, you know, that's nothing. You know, it's huge. Anyway, I'm rambling again. So.
No. So MK Ultra is real. It's being used right now. So we hear about these school shootings. Now, a lot of those stories are not even real. They're false flag events. But for those that are real events, often the shooter will say, I don't even remember what I was doing. I don't remember doing that. I don't remember planning that. And they're used as a scapegoat. Often they don't survive because they're under MK Ultra. So that's a real thing. John also had a handler all this time. So the handler was both a protector and very menacing. And of course, remember, John was a child, about 5 years old on up. And Wayne, his handler, not his real name, was in his life, always directing him to scenes of the crime or things that the average person doesn't witness.
Yeah, Wayne taught me a lot. I fear Wayne. I've had girlfriends say, "Oh, I want to meet Wayne," and it's like, no, you don't. You'll be dead. You don't want to know. It's that powerful at the top. I myself have seen Wayne murder many people. That comes in where the 80 is. They were drowning a person in a 55-gallon drum. It was full of water, gas, whatever it was, but they were actually submerging this person and killing them. And I woke up out of MK Ultra and I started fighting them. And I was actually fist fighting them not to kill this person that was in this 55-gallon drum. MK Ultra is just like hypnosis. If something tragic happens, then you'll snap out of this hypnotic state. But anyway, this happened. So Wayne grabbed me, brought me over to a table, and said, "Oh, you're awake," and started placing bamboo under my fingernails. He didn't actually do it, but he has helpers help do that. So I was sitting there screaming, getting bamboo shut until I passed out. They used to torture me so bad that I would just pass out. I would want to die. And when you get tortured so bad, you just blank out. You don't want to see it, deal with it. And they did that over and over and over again, many, many times. But what I'm getting at is MK Ultra and our CIA, they do this. It's definitely real. It needs to be exposed. We need to put a stop to them. And it's all over money and power, so they stay in power, and it's all the billionaires' club, and I don't want to be invited to their club. I just want to put a stop to their club of how they make their money and do what they do. Love you too.
Well, one of the stories we often get is, why, John, why are we now just hearing about this story? But let's set the stage first. They're deliberately kept in poverty their whole lives. Every time John would get a home to live in, it would be set on fire, destroyed, taken away from him, whatever it was. He never was able to get ahead. He wasn't able to keep jobs because of various factors, mostly fearing for his life throughout his life. So he was threatened, don't tell or we will kill you, which is often, what they tell all these other trauma survivors.
Yeah.
So the story is coming out.
I was told many times all the way back to when I was just a little kid, you can't tell anybody, you'll be killed. You've seen people that actually go to our FBI and try, and then you see they're killed afterwards. One young lady I remember, that happened to her. She went to the FBI, and then she got sucked back into this secret satanic cult meeting that I was at, and they killed her right then and there. And they told the whole audience, everybody that was there, see what happens when you open up, there's no help for you, But yeah, I start talking about all this.
No. People need to know the story. Now, many of you that are in the audience today have already heard my videos talking with John or read the books and have heard the story. This is real. So interviewing and talking with other trauma survivors and or children of celebrities, this story is not the only one. Now, it's a little bit unique because it's a president's son. Now, we were tricked in broad daylight, right? In the 60s. John's father's passed away. Everyone is in mourning. And of course, no one's really paying that much attention to what's happened. His mother took him around the world a little bit. We don't have the internet. We don't have cell phones and video. We don't really know what's happened. We see only what they allow us to see in the media, newspaper, magazine, the TV shows or whatever. So we believe the imposter is real. We believe him. And it's so deeply programmed in what we've been taught over and over and over and over. When we go to say, this is the real John F. Kennedy, people fight us on it.
Yeah, they take a look at me and say, oh, you're not him. Well, I'm not him because I was replaced.
Yeah. Oh, wait, he doesn't have a Boston accent.
I've
Okay.
heard that one before,
Right?
too. Well, I could talk like a lot of people.
Well, and so John, the real John, grew up in California. He did not grow up in Boston. He waited until I hate to say it like this, John's health was very bad because they tried to kill him. So he decided to get his story out before it was too late. That's why we're talking now.
Yeah. And we're still working on getting the story out to the world. But I'm still here. When I first started sharing my story and figured the world really needs to know, the doctors were telling me I'm probably not even going to get off the operating table because of my heart. It was like, well, I'm John Kennedy and the world needs to know my story. And I'm still here. I think that was 4 or 5 years back now. But going back to the Quigleys as my handlers, they handle you. That's when you're placed with a family, when they kidnap you and they place you with another family within this satanic cult, they run everything. People don't realize how organized crime went. We lived in a little town called Coarsegold. It was by Oakhurst, near Yosemite, up from Fresno, right in Central California. But, the sheriff. So the sheriff is in the pocket of organized crime. Then you got the county. The county's in. So I was told, not told, but you're handled. Everybody's involved in organized crime, from where you can get a job, if they want you thrown in jail that day, if they want to pull you over and check your car for a joint. It's all controlled, and they have their little secret meetings. Just working. I did construction. The best jobs I could get was moving rocks from one place to the other. I would go door to door, and I'd say, look, I really need some work. What can I do? And somebody say, well, move these rocks from here to over there, and we'll pay you $3 an hour. I was going to high school, and I didn't like going to high school. I didn't want to go to high school, so I hit this rancher that lived in Coarsegold. He had a really nice ranch, and he worked on Model A's. He said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $2 an hour if you want to work on my cars for me. And it's like, well, I don't have anything better to do. So I worked there for a long time for $2 an hour. You don't make much, but it's how they keep you in poverty. The best job you can get is $2 an hour. But I learned a lot. When I did go to school, I took small engines, Auto 1, Auto 2, learning how to do mechanics. My friends were actually Vietnam vets. So if I wanted to learn how to work on a Chevy or a Ford or whatever, they were more than happy to show me how to set the timing and adjust the carburetors. And then being with the Hells Angels, learning to work on motorbikes and stuff like that. But once you're in that handling situation, they control you and everything you do. The only way I got out was becoming a truck driver and driving away, just getting in a truck and driving away. But you still have the ties because these people, they raised you. They told you that they loved you even when they really didn't. They were just in it. Dorothy Quigley made me some, Dorothy Quigley, I made some toast in her house one day, just plain white bread toast. And I walked in, and this was my stepmother. What are you doing eating my toast? I pulled it out of the loaf of bread, I put it in the toaster, and I toasted it, and then I got in trouble for making toast because I was hungry. Well, I mentioned that to Wayne, my handler. I said, I got in trouble for eating a piece of toast. And he's like, you mean I pay them thousands and thousands of dollars to babysit your ass, and you're getting in trouble for toast? But anyway, that was one of many, many stories.
We've talked about the Quigleys before, so that's the family that John lived with on and off, until maybe you were around 20-ish. But basically, Dorothy got herself into trouble All right, so one of the techniques, we'll call them the bad guys use, the cabal uses, they use doubles a lot. So Dorothy got herself into trouble, and she used a double to help her out. She had the double go through the court case. She lost the court case, and the double was going to go to jail in her stead, but be paid very well. The double never made it to jail, and Dorothy Quigley disappeared. That shows you what they do. Another ploy. So one of the things I wanted to know when John and I first started talking is, why? Why do they go to such great lengths to put a double in place? They use plastic surgery, dental work, masks, all sorts of things to hide someone's identity. But why? Why go to such lengths? I've got it now.
When I was young, I got coaxed into a marriage with my first and only wife. I've never been married after that. But her grandfather and her grandmother, working with the Quigleys, took me to get married. But I overheard him, he, come to find out over the years, he was actually working for John Gotti. But his explanation for identity theft was the hermit crab. He said, our family uses just like the hermit crab, where when one person dies, they just take over the shell and take all the assets, take the whole shell and everything. But identity theft is so huge within our government. The presidents have body doubles and every other thing. But basically, it's to keep them rich. But it's so big. Just like my story, I was replaced. My sister was replaced. My mother was murdered and replaced. I watched Jackie Kennedy in Bullhead City, Arizona, shot 3 times. There was another little girl there at the gas station where she was murdered. That little girl was also thrown in a station wagon. I was thrown in at gunpoint in the station wagon. I believe I was like 15 years old then. But anyway, I was kidnapped and at gunpoint right then and there. So they use identity theft big time. This was our government agents that were doing all this. It's just big. People really need to know that, hey, they'll murder somebody, they'll replace somebody, and they'll steal all their assets. It's going on to this day. They control everything. The United States government, the 3-letter agencies, are the mafia. They are organized crime. My family's and their murders all the way to my father and my uncle, it's organized crime. It was just all a big organized crime takeout. Who's going to take possession of the United States government? That's why they were killed. In short, that's why my father was shot, because there was people in the background that wanted control, didn't want my father there exposing it all. My Uncle Bobby, we were talking a few minutes ago. My Uncle Bobby, when he was shot, the man that shot him said, I don't remember doing it. Why? Because the CIA placed him under this mind control device called MK Ultra. He's not guilty of killing anybody. It was the CIA that programmed it into his head. So when he says, I don't know about killing my, Bobby Kennedy or nothing, it's because he was part of MK Ultra. One of the uncles on the Quigley side, I was sitting there when I was a young kid. They were talking about how my father was assassinated. He claimed he was in the drain. Like I said, there was so many people there that day probably to kill my father so they could say, look at how big and bad we are. We can kill the president of the United States. But he was claiming that he made the shot from the drain. And he's the one that killed my father. My aunt, the man that I just said, his name was Daryl. But anyway, he claimed to be one of the shooters for my father. I had an aunt, and her name was Opal May. A little later on in years, she said, there's some funny business going around here with the Quigley family. Remember my name, please. just remember my name. My name's Opal May Edwards. Well, after she told me that, I never, ever saw her again. And I went to the FBI. I said, you remember Opal May Edwards? I went everywhere. You know, the FBI are like, go away. We can't talk to you. And you can't talk to me about murder and all this other stuff. But it's crazy. And they all get rewards. It's just like any other crime syndicate, any other gang. If you do crimes, you get rewards. So when they killed my father, a lot of people got the rewards for doing that. But MK Ultra is a huge part. You know, when my father was killed, you had this guy, you know, being on the crime scene, getting killed by another. I do believe, and I wasn't there, but I do believe the people that went down for killing my father were part of the MK Ultra programming. It's really big. I've seen it. I know how it works. You can get, and you can't fight it. At least I couldn't. I tried like hell. They can get you in a chair. They can program you, and you'll go nuts if you don't do what they programmed you to do. You'll be one of these people walking down the side of the road talking to themselves, doing jumping jacks or whatever. That's how they program you, your mind. And that's what I believe, how my father was killed, with the CIA programming. Because they're sitting in a chair, you know, 1,000 miles away, and they're having people do their murders for them. If people really want answers and look into this MK Ultra, Las Vegas shooting, everybody's saying Las Vegas proud, we're proud. I believe that 100% that was MK Ultra shooter. They programmed the shooter. Think about it. You get somebody that's got an airplane. I wish I had an airplane. A nice, big, fancy house. And this person can fly around spending money. Why would that person get some ammunition and an assault rifle, go to Las Vegas, and shoot up a concert? Why? That's what gets me, is because Vegas Strong, you didn't get the answers. The FBI did not tell you that person was under MK Ultra. But when you have to ask why, like I've solved many, many things, money. Look at what money was siphoned after he put a assault rifle in a bag, went there, shot up an audience. There was millions of dollars distributed because of his actions that day. That was organized crime, hurting somebody for money. And it's huge. But I believe 100% that man was put under MK Ultra to do what he did. And the FBI is saying, we don't know why the hell he did it. We have no idea. But most of us can just say, okay, it's got to be over money. So where'd all the money come from? I believe it was $36 million from MGM or something. I think that might be worth something to look into, why a guy would put a gun in a duffel bag and go shoot some people. $36 million is a lot. And what other things and all that, but.
And there's some big dollars at play with John's story. So let's set the stage. John was a Kennedy, a wealthy family. Everyone knew them. Of course, they had power and influence. They were loved for the most part. The Onassis family, Aristotle was one of the wealthiest men in the world, and he was an organized crime. So what a genius plan to put his son into John's place. Then they control both what? The Onassis estate as well as the Kennedy estate. They've got a puppet in place that can do their bidding politically, gain the public's heart, and drain the money out of those families' estates, which is exactly what they did. This is one of the biggest, most prominent stories. Okay, everyone will be so shocked when they hear it, but the government does not want us to know what they've been doing. A lot of the famous people, the celebrities, the politicians do have doubles. They have people that look like them. They have masks, they have CGI, whatever the technique is anymore. We have great technology there. They put doubles in place. They assassinate people. They take their accounts. They take their funds, their political influence, whatever it might be, for their purposes. And the average person doesn't even know, right? That's what they did to you.
Yeah, when I was young, our Secret Service tells everybody what to do. They're all making the plans, all this is going on. I went to school with my stepbrother, George Onassis. They lied to him, too. They told him by what I tried, I was real young. But I remember them telling him that his family was burned up in a fire and killed. Other things like that. I remember being on the island and Aristotle Onassis jumping all over him, saying, yeah, these son of a bitches are trying to steal all my billions of dollars. Now they're giving me you as a child. Crazy stories like that. They ended up killing Aristotle Onassis twice that I know of, so there was probably more than one Aristotle Onassis. One instance, they drove Aristotle off in a limousine, and Wayne said, yeah, they're taking him off to kill him. The other was when they took me to a house, and Aristotle Onassis was there. I was out playing in the yard, but then I came back, and he was covered up in a bloody sheet, and the Secret Service officers that were there said they chopped him up with an axe. That's why they had his body covered. So there's many, and then the one that died in the hospital. So there's many body doubles that they use for these billionaires, but it's how they steal the money using the body doubles. It's easier than robbing a bank when you can just find somebody that looks like somebody and say, we're going to kill you, or you're going to pretend to be this person and you'll be rich. And then all of a sudden that person's dead and the person's scared half to death that's pretending to be that person. But that's how they work with identity theft. And it's all over money. But when George, my stepbrother, became me, I didn't have any hard feelings against him. I really didn't. Until the day he said, I want you dead. This is the man that everybody knew as John Kennedy. He wanted me dead, so I would never be on this stage right now sharing that he was my stepbrother George. And our government wanted us all dead. They didn't want me up here at all either. But he wanted me dead. He liked the lifestyle. He liked pretending he was John Kennedy Jr. On the Larry King show, Larry King asked him, the name they gave me was David. Larry King asked him, so what would you do if your name was David? That's how organized crime works. They confronted him right there on TV. What would you do? And how does it feel to be a junior, by the way? Well, that's because they knew he wasn't a junior. He was a bastard son, but I was the real one. Larry King knew me, and so many people in Hollywood knew me, but they go with the organized crime program. Larry King, they murdered my family, like I've been saying, but all the Kennedy possessions were locked into Sotheby's auction house. They were sold at the top of Donald Trump's tower by Sotheby's auction. I think they made $30-some-odd million selling my murdered loved one's possessions. But they advertised it on Larry King. Oh, look, there's an auction coming up. But what they're doing is they're putting their organized crime out there. Look what we can do. We can kill the Kennedys. We can steal all their assets. And then we can sell them at Trump Tower. They don't mind putting their power out there for the whole world to see. Well, I'm sharing here today. This is how they do it. Look, open your eyes and see they're murdering people. They're stealing their jewelry, and they're selling them just like a crime gang or any other gang would do.
One of the other questions that we get often is about DNA. So I think we should address that yet again for the jillionth time. So John has had, I think it's 6 DNA tests. 8. Okay, sorry. 8 DNA tests.
I've given my DNA. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've given my DNA test out to people at Lowe's and Home Depot and Walmart. People say, how about DNA? I don't have a problem sharing with, but why don't the people that demand DNA ask our government to release the DNA? My sister Caroline, the fake one that was murdered and replaced, that's in control of all the Kennedy, she has my mother and father's DNA, but she's not going to release it because she's a criminal herself. So I don't have a problem with DNA. I've taken many DNA tests. I've spit in a napkin and put it in my book and sent it off. I've cut my hair off, mailed it. We've spent thousands of dollars. We went on eBay, believe it or not, eBay. We purchased my father's certified DNA hair samples. We purchased my mother's certified hair samples. We sent the hair samples of my father that went into outer space. You know, they say, oh, John Kennedy DNA went into outer space, so we bought it. Well, we paid a couple $1,000s to have it tested all to be a wig. So these people actually sent a wig of my father's out to outer space. They don't want the world to know my story. So we've spent thousands. I've taken several DNA tests. Basically, in my DNA, it says I'm related to some popular people. But it won't say, okay, you're related to JFK or you're related to Jackie. I need their DNA. Our government has their DNA. So scream to the government, get me to Congress. Say, release my father's DNA compared to mine. I know who I am. I seen my father beaten, one of the last memories I have, beaten on a steering wheel saying they're going to kill me. I'm as good as dead. I know what I lived, and I've seen so much. I went to the FBI and I said, look, are you going to help me or not? I'll take you to where the body's buried. I'll take you right there. I'll even bring you a lounge chair and you could sit there. And I'll grab the shovel and I'll dig the hole and I'll show you the dead body in the hole. That was our FBI. And they said, go away. That's because my story is so big. All they can say is go away because it goes all the way to the presidents. They'll all be sitting in prison for the crime ring they all belong to. I love you guys. You guys are great. You keep me going. We get a lot of haters, and I know why, because the truth is so hard for them to handle, and we're exposing a crime ring. You know, everybody, the Epstein files. The Epstein files are exposing this same exact crime ring that I was held in captive to. All the children need justice. There's dozens and dozens, and they're all being corrupted and tortured and handled by the elite. So it's all about the children to me. I'm not going to be here forever. I started sharing this story thinking I was going to die in the first place. But it needs to be out for our children, for the future of America. Too many people have died for this country to see it go to shit and turned over to organized crime the way it is now. Yeah, sure.
Are there any quick questions? How did he get out? Is he out?
I don't know if I'm out or not. MK Ultra is the most powerful tool that I know of. If they wanted me dead, I would probably be dead. I went to the FBI one time and they said, and they were speaking of a higher power. I'm sitting in the FBI office and the FBI agent said, if they wanted you dead, you would be freaking dead. And I didn't agree with them at that time. I just said, well, maybe I'm a little smarter than they are because I sure missed a lot of attempts on my life, assassination attempts.
Yeah. Go ahead.
How did you survive the plane crash, and were there other survivors?
Story about the plane crash in 1999.
Yeah, I've been actually in a couple different plane crashes, but the one in 99, they were arguing, by the way. John, George, whatever you want to call him, and his wife were arguing. I mean, yelling and screaming at each other. While they were doing that, he was saying, I can't steer the plane. I was putting on my life preserver. I pulled it out from under. There was another one on the other backside. She pulled it out, but I put it on. The minute I put it on, I put my shoulder right here up against the back of the seat. So I had my life preserver on. I had my shoulder up against the back of the seat. I told George, John, I don't know, what should I call him?
The imposter.
Yeah. But anyway, I said, look, because I flew all over my whole life, here and there. But anyway, I told him, look, just slow your airspeed down. If you can't steer the airplane, just slow it down. So, because we were going in a circle like this, I could tell we were going in a circle. I said, just slow down. And the minute I said that, while they were still yelling and screaming at each other, we hit the water. The minute we hit the water, I went for the door, and I pried the door, but I grabbed the sister. She was to my left. I pulled her out, and I'm kicking like crazy to get away from that airplane. She said, stop, stop. I got to go back. I got to go back and see my sister. I was thinking I should knock her out, but we were struggling in the water. She wanted to go see. And I said, look, but anyway, I let her go. She went back to the airplane. I don't know if when they found her body, because you never know what these sneaky people do, put her back in the airplane or whatever. But when something's in the water and it's sinking, it will sink you down with it. So my Navy training and the training they gave me said, the minute get as far away from it as you can so you don't die. So that's what I did. I tried to save her life. I did save her life. I pulled her out of the airplane, but she went back and died.
She got sucked down.
Yeah.
She got sucked down.
Right. After that happened, I had my life preserver on. It was dark. I remembered my training where you put your arms over the life preserver and you hold it down. I floated in the ocean. I was sore. I was hurting. I felt like I was half dead. But I stayed on my back, and every time a wave would come up, I would look for land. The whole time I didn't know if I was bleeding or not because the crash was that bad. I thought I was bleeding. And I was just waiting for a shark to eat me. But then after staying in the water for so long, I went into shock. The last thing I remember is getting pulled up, probably on a Coast Guard ship. But anyway, the last thing I remember is they were piling towels on me. And they can cover up anything. But I was actually on that plane. That's what happened. And I'm sharing what happened. Some people think it's unbelievable, but I was there. So I'm sharing it.
Online for months and months and months, there's been rumors that you were going to be with Trump and you vice president.
Yeah.
Is all that just crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, anything, from John Kennedy being on Mount Rushmore, them keeping the real, I'm the real, but from them keeping the fake John alive to come back to save the country. The dude was a criminal. He was an organized crime member. He was made a DA. That's how our crooked government gets these people in. I went to school with Sean Hannity. They put him in the mainstream media. I went to school with George, my stepbrother, but they made him a DA. You imagine if they looked into all the shit he did while he was in official in government, being a district attorney for New York, all the crimes, all the murders that he covered up for them. When you have a DA in your pocket, you can kill anybody you want, and you're not going to get justice. Or you all know what I mean.
Yeah. Question? We've answered the whole thing. Well, there is clearly, very clearly to me, a plan or an agenda to bring out a fake John F. Kennedy Jr., a dude that they can control, right, and put into politics, and then they can control. And look at America still loves the Kennedys. They would vote for him in a second, right? That's their plan. That was their plan. We're foiling that plan. They don't want this story out. So I am so proud that this is really John's first public appearance on a stage telling his story. The first of many. The story will get out there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm hoping I can keep going and going and going. This is the first opportunity, and I want to thank King and everyone for making this happen so I can get the truth out, because they don't want anyone to know. So hopefully in the future I can keep doing this and sharing my experiences as the son of a president that was assassinated and what's really going on in this crazy ass world we got. So we can make this crazy ass world a better place.
One more quick question.
I don't have a question, but I just want to make a statement. I think the reason that you're here and involved in this is that until we find out what happened to your father and you're exposed as the real one, there's something in the world, in the U.S. that just can't heal within our psyche until we get that shit straight. That's my opinion.
The comment was that until
Thank you.
we find out what happened to JFK Sr., the country can't heal. Like, does anyone have any doubt whatsoever that there was more than one bullet? That there was conspiracy to kill John's father? Does anyone have any doubt? Like, why would we be told such a ludicrous lie and we believe it? Well, we don't know what to do is really what the bottom line is. All right? There's always an agenda. Now, we know that they're going to bring out, or they were going to try to bring out a fake JFK Jr. We foiled that plan, and we're not going away. Thank you, thank you,
Amen.
thank you for your support.
Yes, I always thought that John F. Kennedy died because he knew about the aliens, and that's why they killed him. That's what I always thought.
The comment was she thought that John Kennedy Sr. died because he knew about the aliens. Do you want to answer that one, or?
I'm not sure about the aliens. All I know is he was killed because he was trying to expose everything that they didn't want exposed. You know, he said there's a plot in this country to enslave us all, and we need to get rid of all that. He was saying these secret societies, we don't need the secrets. We need, you know, this is our country, not these secret societies' country. So he very well could have, but it was a war. They didn't want him talking the way he was talking.
He knew a lot of the secrets that have been kept from us, the people. Like, the politicians work for the people, right? He knew what was going on. He was going to expose it. He was murdered. There was lots of reasons why that fit into their plans. One more question?
Yeah, one more. So you were in that movie Egg Roll, whatever it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when I was a kid, I just loved Doris Day.
I did too.
But for what you're telling me, she must have known that you were being mind controlled.
Oh, exactly. So did David Keith. They're all connected to the Western movies, the Western shows, the whole thing. But what they did with me being in the Egg Roll movie is they put me under MK Ultra, and they really mess with your head when you're under MK Ultra. So they took me to a house. They put Doris Day in front of me. They put Brian Keith in front of me, and they said, "This is your mommy and daddy now." So I spent, I don't know, a little kid, maybe 2 weeks with Brian Keith and Doris Day as my mommy and daddy. So when it came time for them to film the movie, I was like, "Mommy." It was already pre-planned. I was on the show 1 Adam 12, and I was in a plane crash. They love putting me in plane crashes just to mess with my MK Ultra mind. But there was an episode of 1 Adam 12. I was in an airplane that had been crashed with a drunk. Fuel was actually dripping on me. But if you watch that program, that episode, you can see I'm surely under MK Ultra. I was asleep. One of the guys from Adam 12 came in the plane, grabbed me, took me out, dropped me in the ground, gave me CPR, but you could see my body was lifeless while they were filming that episode, and that was me. So many shows. I was on Green Acres, Mayberry RFD. I met everybody. They took me around meeting everybody. And I thought that was because they were planning on making me president, where I would know the whole crime ring, everybody. But that's how they control people, is with the MK Ultra. But I love Doris Day. I think it was not Zsa Zsa Gabor, but Eva Gabor that was on Green Acres. Being a little kid, I had a crush for her too. But I got to meet all these people. They get these stars, and then they bring you up to these movie stars and stuff, and it makes you feel special. Like, even though you only meet them for a few minutes or maybe a week or two, but you feel bonded with them. Like, I'm part of that club. I know John Wayne. I know, all the other Clint Eastwood, or I know Charles Bronson. They take you around and let you meet them for a few minutes, and then pretty soon you're like, I'm in the club.
I think we're at a good wrapping place for today, and you'll be able to talk with John at his booth the rest of the day. One more question?
Yeah, I think people appreciate this. Growing up, I'm the same age as John, and as I became an adult, I was kind of obsessed with, like, how did this happen to your father? Because we all loved him in this country. It's going to make me cry. Anyway, I've read the books and the theories and the experts and the this and the that. Now, this is the first time hearing from you that that sounds so stupid, but there was a shooter in the break, the drain, and you heard him say that from the horse's mouth, basically, that he's the one that pulled the kill shot. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, not necessarily the kill shot, but he was claiming it to the Quigley family, and he was actually bragging because he was so steady at making a shot.
Because there was a recent video that came out that I'd never seen before, and again, I was obsessed with this topic. And the driver had turned around, and they were saying that he's the one that did it. So I don't know if you have any.
Yeah. Well, this guy that claimed he was in the drain and he made the shot, when I was just overhearing it when I was young, we went up Northern California to Redding, California, Shasta Lake, I believe. But he had a gold mine. I mean, they treat the people really well that do their crimes. I was like, you're going to own this, or you're going to have your own gold mine. But what was really strange is when we went up there, was the street we were on was like Kennedy Boulevard. So, yeah, he lived off of Kennedy Boulevard or something. And then me remembering that he was bragging on doing the shooting. It's really weird how they connect their organized crime and it connects all their stuff like that.
I'm sorry you went through it too.
Oh. Well, thank you. Thank all you guys for listening and just giving me the opportunity to share my story with you. I hope you take it as a truth, because it is a truth. If you don't, look into it a little harder. But it's all about the children. It's all about the future of our country and the children. We can't allow a corrupt system to be controlling us. We're not going to get ahead. We're not going to get ahead with these gangsters running everything, and that's my big thing. Let's get rid of the gangsters, and let's start making this country for us.
Hallelujah. Done, done, done. Thank you all. I wanted to say one little tidbit before we go. Yesterday, I introduced James Sisko to John Kennedy, and he goes, I met you before in New York City. And I'm like, wait, you met this John before? And he goes, yeah. I said, it was this person? Yes.
Yeah, and I remember he's very familiar to me too. One thing, like I was saying, they take you around and you meet these people for just a few minutes at a time. I met Rudy Giuliani. I know 9/11 was bogus. I was there. They showed me that 9/11 had to come down, that they had to take those buildings down long before those planes hit it. They showed me that. They showed me how they strong-armed the inspectors when they were inspecting the basement of how to shut up or they'll eliminate you, and or how organized crime worked in New York. They were all putting it in front of me. And now I'm trying to explain to the world what they put in front of me. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we get to haters, but I'm not going to stop. I'm never going to give up. I'm going to keep going.
The story needs to come out. You can
Thank you.
get more info at therealjohnfkennedykr.com. And thank you for all of your support.
Thank you, everyone.